So yeah. Hey, welcome. Thanks for being here at the very first Agripreneurship meeting. Thank you very much, guys. I'm really happy with the turnout. There's a couple of new faces and a lot of talent in this room. I already know because I know some of your stories and the things that you're working on. Let's put our hands together and thank Prakash and Molly for being here. PK is going to come up first. He's going to share with you some of his experiences. I just wanted to touch on kind of, again, what we're doing here tonight, networking, community building, and cross-pollinating, sharing our ideas with one another. So the Agripreneurship curriculum is really based with keeping good agricultural practices. It's about more the food production and the farming. And these sessions are going to be more about the business aspect and kind of people enduring in their respective businesses. So we want to make sure when these guys wrap up that we have a little time for Q&A. And I'll let PK kind of do questions and answers at the end of his session. And then what we'll try to do is end everything around 8:15, 8 o'clock, so that we can talk amongst ourselves. And I also, as we're conversing about that stuff, I want to do a little walking tour around here so you can get an idea of some of the potential that we have at Homeland's Greenhouse. It's actually a giant space. Next month we're going to be meeting over at Uchi Mama's kombucha workspace, and we're going to kind of see what it's like to step inside a business coming out of the embryonic state and into the real world of taxes and burdens and all that fun stuff. So I'm going to stop talking because PK's got to scoot in a little bit. But yeah, let's welcome PK. Thank you all for being here.
So my name is Prakash Ramchandani, but you guys can call me PK. And I started a restaurant with a friend of mine from college in 2010. And since then, blessings of our fellow Toledoans, we've grown a lot. So we have 3 locations now, all over Toledo, and we base our menu on including a lot more vegetables than what is typically available in the standard American diet. So on average, our restaurant carries between 18 and 22 different types of vegetables at any given time. We've structured our menu to be able to include seasonally available vegetables. Going to talk a little bit about what it was like to get started and some of the challenges that we face and some of the holes that I see in Toledo's agricultural scene, and then I'd like to leave like 80% of this to answer questions if that's cool. Yeah, so I met my friend and we had similar kind of ideas about what we wanted to see in the restaurant scene. I mean, just like any other business, and we got started. And we had different ideas on what we wanted to see out of the restaurant, so we were able to layer all of these ideas together. So there was things I didn't like about other restaurants. I didn't like the pre-production aspect of a lot of restaurants, how they kind of get things in that are pre-prepped, like the Subway is the majority of how restaurants run. Even restaurants that you would go to and consider, I don't know, I know you guys know a lot about food production. I don't know if you guys know a lot about food processing. So if I'm telling you guys stuff that you already know, by all means, stop. But the majority of restaurants try and eliminate prep. It is a liability from most restaurant people's point of view. So actually having people operate with a knife, even restaurants that you may consider to be very healthy or are very like fresh focused, like a Chipotle or a Panera. If you go to a Chipotle, they don't cut any of those salsas, they don't make any of those there, they don't make the barbacoa, the carnitas, any of that. Their chicken comes in pre-marinated, pre-trimmed, it goes through multiple stages of processing, and that's kind of the reality of it. If you go to a Panera, which is famous for fresh salads and sandwiches and stuff, try and look for a grill next time you're there. You probably won't see one, which means that chicken comes in pre-cooked. All of those veggies, you don't see anybody with a knife. You don't see anybody with a cut glove. So that tells you a lot. When the vegetables that are grown with so much care are treated with so little care. That was one thing I really didn't like about the restaurant industry. It's not something that I thought was very appropriate. I guess like the understanding of what a restaurant was. So why would you go out and eat, right? The base point is that you go out and eat and you kind of expect that restaurant to make everything there. So like you go to an Olive Garden, your inherent understanding, kind of like when people think I'm going to go out and get milk, they think they're going to go get like hand utter pulled milk from some farmer named Bob with rolling hills and a red barn. You know, that's really not the reality of it, and that's kind of like that with the food industry. So like in the Olive Garden, where you would go and you would pay $20 a plate and get served. The reality is all they've got back there is something called a rethermalizer, which means that all of their pasta comes in pre-cooked, all of their sauces come in pre-cooked in bags, and they put it in an immersion circulator, like a water fryer basically, that brings it up to temp, and they serve it to you. They have that, they have a single grill, which is like about 24 inches wide, and 3 microwaves. That's what the kitchen in a Olive Garden is essentially doing. So that, like I said, is inherent in the restaurant business, and it's something that we really wanted to change. So how balance is different is we take whole ingredients and we actually make them into food that you would want to eat in the house. So everything that we serve for a day has been prepped that day. So if we bring in green peppers, for example, are one of our ingredients, obviously. What you eat has been prepped that morning, and everything else that we cannot go through, we store in whole form, because obviously what you guys know, but a lot of people don't understand is vegetables are living organisms. As soon as you do that, yes, you start to lose the quality, but when you lose the quality, you lose the nutrition factor as well. That's what you're losing, the nutrients. So, again, I'm not telling you things that you guys don't know about food itself, but how it's treated in a restaurant is a whole different subject. And when you go to places like Chipotle or Panera or Subway is a better example, and all of those fresh veggies that you see there have been all cut in a commissary and shipped, and they're on average a week, 2 weeks old, and the reason that they still look fresh is because they have preservatives and food-grade waxing sprayed on them, which is how you're able to eat fresh ingredients able to look that way. So hopefully I didn't destroy anybody's outlook on things, but things are definitely changing. We're not the only restaurant in town, and I'm happy for that. That makes food fresh, but we're definitely the only one with price points under $10. So I would like to see that more often, but I would like to see more locally grown food. So that was going to be the main point of my discussion and why I wanted to be here. It's something I've discussed with Scott quite a bit, is our ability to supply locally, which we do the best of our ability, but the reality is we go through 400 pounds of broccoli a week. We go through 80 pounds of kale at one location. We have 3. And most farmers will produce and sell kale to us at about 80 pounds a month. That's like max capacity essentially right now for what we can get in Toledo, which is why I think if more people grow food, but grow and use restaurants to provide a security blanket. So this is kind of my idea. If this is something we're trying to do also for next year. We've done it for some commodity items, like we use blue corn tortillas. So we had the blue corn grown for us and dried, and then we had it processed into masa and tortillas here in town, which is awesome. But that's a shelf-stable item once you dry it out, you know? So we would like to do that with fresh food and grow with co-op farmers who are willing to allocate sections of their land and grow together to meet actual supply. And while there are other restaurants that do take locally grown produce, the reality is a lot of the produce that's grown is not staple items. So we're not growing a lot of carrots or broccoli or staple items. We're growing, for lack of a better term, a lot of hipster food. And hipster food only feeds so many people. Like, we can only feed so many people
on microgreens and different types of, lettuce. Like, that's great. I think that helps. I don't want to make it sound like I don't think it helps. But it's not taking a dent into what we could be doing if we actually grew food and sustainable. So that's what I have to say. That's probably the end of it. I'm totally open to answer any questions you guys have.
What kind of vegetables, plants, herbs would you like to see grown besides the kale and broccoli?
So the herbs we get a lot of. Herbs are fairly easy. Things like cilantro, scallions, basil, dill, parsley. We use Thai basil. Some of the other specialty crops that we're able to get on a fairly regular basis that are not so much of an issue are bean sprouts. You'd be surprised, bean sprouts are easy to grow. They take 3 to 5 days, and we can definitely buy a ton of them. I think that stuff's awesome. Kale, we would love to buy a lot more kale. Let's see, other items that we can get. Honestly, not a lot. That's pretty much it. We get some peppers, we get some habaneros that are grown in town, which are great. Some of the stuff that we would like to see are large, stable items. Broccoli is a huge one. We can get
What about fish?
we currently do not carry any type of fish, but if I could get a steady supply,
I know you do tacos and stuff. I don't know if you fish.
we would make a fish taco. That's kind of the cool thing about having a restaurant that has flexibility to change our menu every 6 months. So if we could communicate and get a steady supply of what we think would be able to be sold in a 6-month period, and we can contract for that, then we will definitely design a recipe around that. And we do that with a lot of things. And it could be something small. Right now, tomorrow, we're releasing a potato salad that uses locally grown dill and basil. Kind of because the only thing we can get right now is that.
Mushrooms. What about mushrooms?
Yes, mushrooms are great. I would love to have access to a variety, selfishly, of Asian mushrooms. Shiitake would be great. Oysters would be great. Mushrooms are a great thing that in Ohio we can get grown indoors and year round.
So one of the things that I've been kind of in and out, but I wanted to make sure that we touched on a conversation that was happening, just kind of happenstance as you were talking in Bleak House. Walked in, I was trying to work on some paperwork, and you were just touching on some of the gaps in our current food system. But a lot of what we have are these small-time hobbyist ideas that turn into business models like microgreen production or kind of like sorrel or little odds and ends here, but they're never really going to actually put a significant dent in the everyday restaurant that has to place an order for GFS just to fill what they need to do. And you guys, who do you order for usually?
We'll usually go to like an auction house and try and get it to a co-op. So that's basically what we usually do.
And right now, just
West Coast co-op, we try and get the best we can. And if we can't, then as you guys know, 90% of our food is imported. So there's really very little choices out there for regular, standard commodity vegetables.
And there's 2 shifts that need to happen. There's the shift in the production side where we need to start thinking of clever ways to extend our growing season, but there's also the shift in people's demand. Like when restaurants begin to showcase things more seasonal, relevant ingredients and get people accustomed to eating what is actually able to be grown in season at least some time around that time of year, then it's a lot easier to actually meet the supply. So like broccoli, while we should be able to handle that about 6 months out of the year, no one's doing that right now.
Yeah, it's a big open hole. We're definitely not the only people who use broccoli, but we use a ton of it.
Yeah.
So that would be great. Definitely.
So,
I'll touch on that a little bit too.
perfect.
Commodity regular items, more restaurants use them. That's the reality of it. There is definitely a cool part about being able to use one item that you can put a focus on, rolling out a seasonal special. But coming from a restaurant's point of view, it's difficult to get a regular customer base. I mean, you guys go out to eat all the time. I would wager the places you guys go, if you guys go out to eat, you go there because they're consistent. So you can get kind of the same thing that you really liked the last time you went there. It's the reason that even really terrible restaurants like McDonald's can be really successful, because they may put out terrible food, but they do it consistently. That is half of the struggle in the restaurant business, and that's probably why a lot of restaurants don't.
Are you willing and able to pay a higher wholesale price for produce sourced locally? And how does that work in your business plan?
So we definitely allocate for that. We basically have a net budget that we try and project between 20 and 30% over average market cost for something that's locally grown. So that is our internal kind of budget that we use. And if it doesn't fall within that budget, then we have to structure a menu item around whatever the cost of production for that is. If it's a commodity item, like I said, 20 to 30% over what the market value is. It needs to be relevant to what ingredient cost is. That's, I think, part of the other problem. Restaurants, and this is an issue we run into all the time, where there may be local supply. Growers may or may not want to sell to a commercial buyer because they can gain a lot higher value for that through a farmer's market. But $8 a pound tomatoes, you're only helping a very select group of people, right? I mean, if you truly believe in the power of local food, you want that to be spread to the largest group of people if possible, not just people who make $100,000 plus a year and can afford $8 tomatoes. We really need to hit everybody. In Toledo, where the average income is between $35,000 and $50,000, people go out to eat at fast food a lot, which is why we made sure that we structured all of our average ticket to be under $10, like a fast food restaurant. It's really important to us. But in order to make that possible, we need to be able to buy produce at a cost that is reasonable.
Tell me about those wonderful Brussels sprouts that you got.
Yeah.
You have any trouble finding them? Because those are good.
Yeah, I mean, there's not a lot of people in Toledo growing Brussels sprouts.
Those are good, though.
Not the case, yeah.
I know I've eaten them lots of times before, but very seldom eaten them. It tastes so good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you. That's all my business partner. I can take no credit for that. I have no shame.
Words do.
He does a great job, definitely. Orange, that's the secret. Counteracts the bitterness.
When you source things locally, do you see that translate into increased sales for certain products, or does it just?
Yeah, so we do our best to communicate with the customer base, and obviously not every customer who walks into a restaurant, that is their focus, or they find value in that. But we would like to develop longer lasting partnerships, so to gain a partnership that will last us for a season, and then feature that partnership. So we'd like to promote that either via our website or through social media and see if we can gain greater customer value. But like I was saying earlier, the customer base, not a lot of our theory on how we run our restaurant is we try not to get into marketing gimmicks or tell people how they should eat. That's not really our position, It's the reason why you can get things made that are unhealthy at balance, or you can get things that are extremely healthy for you and extremely clean. Those are personal choices that people make. Everybody is at a different stage in their understanding of things. You guys were obviously here and very receptive to hearing me tell you some very cold truths about how the restaurant industry operates. 9 out of 10 people that you might meet are not ready for that. They're not ready to comprehend that and understand that, or do they want to put forth the mental energy to understand that? I think more and more people, especially this generation, are starting to understand that food is going to be the fight of our generation. I think it definitely is. we're starting to see a lot of very negative effects that come from industrial farming. And those effects are far-reaching. They go from climate change to our drinking supply here in Toledo. And as you talk to more and more people about that, they start to realize it's not just our processing facility for water is antiquated and 30 years old. It's the supply of the water that's coming in. And where did the algae come from? Industrial farming operations. Why do they do that? And the questions start to open up, but all of that takes time. So I think in 5 years you'll see double the population that will gain more value from the fact that their food is grown here locally. But if I had to put a guess on it right now, it's probably 15% of your average population. Might be generous.
I'll say that's pretty.
You know, realistically, like 1 out of 10 people that you meet would be A, enlightened, and B, motivated to make purchasing decisions that are like that, to vote with their dollar. You know? And I hope it becomes more, because that just gets passed on.
So you say only about 15% are really interested in making a change environmentally?
No,
Not
definitely did not mean it to come off like that. I meant 15% of people that would come into a restaurant, even our restaurant, that is the major focus is on that, would make a purchasing decision to purchase a specific item, specifically because that was grown.
Okay, so that it leads to my question of what age group is your largest consumer though? Who's giving you the most dollars?
18 to 34. Yeah.
18 to 34.
It's definitely our generation. You can see it in an older generation, and I mean no offense at all, but a general indifference to how food is produced. Just definitely the care and thought is just not that, from what I've seen.
I'm sorry. What restaurant do you have?
It's called Balance Grill.
The bubble tea people. I love that place.
Thank you. We do food too.
Yeah, the tapioca. That's in the boat.
Yeah.
Right. Group, isn't it?
But your reference has been locally produced.
How do I define locally produced?
Well, yeah, what methods of production? I guess more. You know, I mean, locally produced food can still be a factory farm, or do you know what I mean? Like, so we're saying local, but can you define what you mean by local? Like, you know, most people I think here when we think about local and the food movement is, you know, sustainably produced, organically produced, but what?
So biodynamic farming is our main quantifier. We don't necessarily buy based on organic. I'm sure you guys know organic certifications.
And I don't necessarily mean certified, but practices more, you know, methods.
I mean, you're hitting something that is very valid. You're seeing a cross between different ways that people care about food. Some people understand that, okay, if I'm going to pay $5 a pound for these green peppers, I want, you know, all $5 to go towards the farmer that produced it, and very little to go towards logistics. But if you can get, and this is what happens, I mean, they get these peppers from Mexico for $2 a pound, and then $3 of it goes into logistics, bringing it to, you know. So some people care very deeply about that, and they should, because that's a huge net effect on our economy and the amount of oil that and food that it takes to move our food supply from A to B. It's just immense, and so local food would make a huge difference in that sense. However, just because it's grown locally does not mean that it's grown necessarily with care. There could still be a lot of pesticides and a lot of, you know, factory farming methods that are there. And so it takes a lot of time and thought. You have to get to know the people who are producing it and see if you like what they do. I mean,
Around here, you're gonna get everything.
yeah, you're gonna get a grab bag
world
mix. Absolutely. And everybody approaches
You go
farming.
green and you got all the agribusinesses, so. You get them all.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, everybody approaches it in a different way.
But so you personally, as a business partner, you are seeking locally produced, but with organic methods,
Organic
sustainable.
or at least biodynamic.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely. That is something that, if we can get that, that's the best of both worlds. As far as what we rank, We rank absolutely first and foremost on freshness, so a lot of people would like to sell us foods, but their foods are not necessarily the freshest. Just because it's grown locally, just because it's grown organically, we have to buy for our customers. Our customers want crisp, fresh produce. That is what they want first and foremost. Secondary, if we can get it locally, that's extremely important to us because it affects the local economy. We would like to see more of the dollars that are spent at that go back into the local economy. I think that makes a huge difference for Toledo. And our third is farming method. So we kind of go by that priority level, but that is what we do now in 2016. It would be different. It was different when we started. We prioritized biodynamic or organic produce over local produce. And as time has gone on, that's changed.
Kind of piggyback off that, how much are you willing to, what lengths are you willing to go to find local? If you got a call tomorrow and it was a farmer saying, I have 30 pounds of broccoli, bumper crop, are you interested?
Yeah.
You wouldn't just throw that aside that
No,
you'd
absolutely
already
not.
gone to the auction?
So I talked a little bit about the volume we go through, and there's absolutely no way that we can do 100% supply from anything. I mean, we will take what we can get, by all means. If it's fresh and, within a reasonable scope of what that, the value of that is, then we will definitely take it, absolutely. The majority of our produce supply in the on-season is blended. And last year, I think the highest blend we could get was 40%. So that meant that 40% of our supply came locally. And that was for one item, which was kale.
Does anyone here have broccoli in the ground?
I do, but nowhere close to what he wants. I wish I planted more.
That would be great. As far as to what lengths we would go, virtually limitless. So we are kind of getting on our feet, definitely. We just went through an expansion at Balance ourselves, so we just opened our third restaurant at the beginning of this year. And we are contracting now for next year to contract for land for specially grown items. And we would love to help in any way possible, including possibly sponsoring a vertical grow operation so we could grow more of what we need and to grow it year round. These are all things that we would love to accomplish in the next 24 months. So
I want to jump in here. So we have this really neat opportunity. There are many, probably dozens that I know of within a 3-mile radius, dozens of acres that the city holds, and they don't want to continue mowing. So last year, some folks from City Council pitched something to me about managing that land and doing food production with it, and I said, "Yeah, we'll do it. Let me grow on every square inch that I have first, and then I'll come back to you in 5 years." They laughed at me, because I got to be a steward of what I have first before I go break ground somewhere else. But to your point, if we have people who have the talent, time, and energy, maybe not time, but talent and energy, to produce a pretty large quantity of food, and a market saying, "Wish that I could do some of this stuff locally." Obviously, you have to figure out how, pricing, you have to put together a whole business plan and figuring out if you can actually sustain yourself by producing broccoli in Northwest Ohio. And there's a reason why people don't do it, because it's pretty easy to get cheap, and it's really pretty space intensive. It's not like a tomato where you have 1 square foot and you're picking from it for a really long time. You cut off that broccoli head and you maybe get one more, 2 more if you do something magical, but it's a tough thing to do. But we have an interested business in saying, "Hey, let me tell you what we need. Let me give you a compass, or at least some initial idea about how to start up or direction to go." So how, PK, do people get involved in pursuing that idea? How do we turn that, put it into paper, and make sure we have very clear communication up front, so there's not, as with a lot of local produce, it's usually a handshake and yeah, I'll get that done for you.
It is
And then
absolutely just as easy as either finding me, I'm around all over the place, or sending us an email and being like, hey, I want to grow this for you, which we get emails for. That's kind of how we've done this so far. Is people just hit us up and they're like, hey, heard you buy local produce, and this is what I've got. But we'd rather get to the point of, like what you were saying, Scott, hey, I'm interested in growing this. I think I could be good at growing this. I want to do this. We'll set something up. See if we can't do it for a season. See how it goes.
are most of those relationships, is there some sort of MOU or like a contract involved with it, or is it?
Typically, it's from the producer standpoint. We don't put anything out to a producer, no. But typically, a producer will want us to sign an MOU or an agreement, purchase agreement, something like that.
Because a restaurant can't, the CSA model doesn't necessarily translate to a business. Like a restaurant wouldn't necessarily go put its neck out on the line and buying a bunch of shares of whatever you happen to bring in that year. So I understand the onus has to be on the producer.
The onus has to be on the producer, and it can't be like a CSA model where it's just like a mixed, this is what I was able to produce and this is what came out. I mean, I really need to know that I'm going to be getting kale, this is the type of kale I'm getting because I'm a processor. So when you sell me a specific type of kale, for example, like, let's see, like flat or curly, right? Two like major types. Flat is very important to us. We don't want curly kale. Curly kale takes more space in our fridges. It takes more to, as you guys know, it's stemmier, so we have more loss. But the bigger part of it is the prep time that's involved in it. So we're looking for particular types of produce, and we want that same type day in and day out, because every time we change the type of kale, we need to retrain 12 people on how to prep them. So consistency. That consistency needs to go back. So that's why a CSA model doesn't translate very well, because our customers expect consistency. Therefore, that expectation is real. Which I know is a difficult thing. I fully understand how difficult that is. Things don't always work out. But
we have to master nature. We just have to master the kitchen and people, and maybe the restaurant's order.
Where do you source, you've talked about vegetables, but where do you source your meat?
So right now we're buying from a farm and processor that's all located in West Virginia. So it's called, I don't remember. It's slipping my head right now. I could let you know.
And what are your standards for I'm sorry, we're kind of like out in the country, we're not in Toledo, so I don't have much of a familiarity with the restaurant, but what are your standards for your meat? So we talked a little bit about,
Antibiotic free is the number one issue that we do not want to carry. Antibiotic, growth hormones. Those two things are big no-nos. After that, vegetarian feed is important to us. Getting things that are free range on our scope is very limited. Free range is very limited, but vegetarian fed can be had. So that is something that we can get access to, but even we as a restaurant have to buy from a so from Butcher House and Breakdown Houses, they buy from a co-op. So that co-op, not necessarily everybody in that co-op grows the exact same way. They have, every co-op has like different use standards for kind of like what it takes to get into their co-op, and then after that, it's kind of up to everybody. It's kind of the point of the co-op, right? Not everybody would own their own thing, but yeah, it's difficult. I mean, you can try and dictate as far up the supply chain as you want. The reality is sometimes the supply isn't there, or it's inconsistent, or
I'm assuming you only want certain cuts as well. You're only looking for.
So we, when it comes to beef, we use 3 different types of cuts, and we butcher from a quarter. So that's what we do. So we aim able to do a lot of breakdown, but that's the furthest that we can do. And we like to use the rear quarter. So that is good. And then the chicken, we need a limited amount of processing as far as a risk standpoint. We can't do any less than both in our restaurant. It's very high risk for any type of restaurant to do any type of debone in their space. If you miss one and somebody chokes on it, you're going to be in some deep trouble. Another thing to consider is, as great as farm to table sounds, health departments don't like that. Health departments want you to buy from a distributor. So you have an invoice so that they can trace it and they can blame it on the Department of Agriculture. This is essentially how it works. And I know that because we have an ODA licensed facility that operates as a food distribution company. That's exactly how we bring in local produce, because a lot of people are not able to provide us with the type of paperwork that we need. The Ohio Department of Agriculture is a little looser, but the health department treats you like a processing facility. So they want to know exactly what you bought, from where, see an invoice for it, and we're required to hold that for 30 minutes. So it's another thing to think about. Working with a local distributor is always a good thing too. So like Sam Open Produce, they will try and source, to my knowledge, as much as they can locally, and their definition of local is 300 miles. So they specifically try and buy within a 300-mile radius the best that they can, and they will purchase that from you and hand up all of the paperwork, send it to a restaurant, and we have very little waste. Or, like I said, we started our own distribution company specifically so we can do that.
All right, any other questions so far? Fire away. What time do you have to get out of here? Anytime. Okay, good.
This should be short. Obviously, everybody else knows the definition, but probably everybody else has actually managed to grow something other than weeds in their garden. I have not. So, what is your definition of biodynamic?
So biodynamic farming would mean natural fertilizers, to my knowledge. So using a natural fertilizer source and non-chemical fertilizer source.
Okay.
So also kind of reusing wasted vegetable products to make compost. Farming. I can tell you that they talk about conventional and biodynamic farming, and I typically will go to.
That's a pretty reasonable summary.
Pretty much. One, you use, if you need nitrogen or phosphorus, you can buy it crystallized, throw it in the dirt, water it, good to go. Or you can use actual natural fertilizers. Any other questions?
Less of a question and more of a comment going back to that 15%. I was at Churchill's and I saw a sign that said, locally grown tomatoes, White House. They looked amazing. They smelled like tomatoes. I hopped on Facebook and I posted, this tomato smells like a tomato. And I had 3 people like it. Nobody cared. And me and my one friend that just complain about, even in the summer, you can't get a decent tomato around here. And no one seems to care that much.
Got to get the wax off of there.
Yeah.
It's one of the most waxed items. So tomatoes are interesting. They're obviously picked green, and they're sprayed with a ripening agent and kept in this special packaging. So they actually don't turn red and round until they spray a ripening agent in the grocery store.
That's why they taste the way they do.
That is absolutely why. They do a lot of weird things to produce to make it stay for that 3-week trip up from Mexico.
Is that organic ones too, for the tomatoes?
No, organic are not sprayed with any type of artificial ripening agent.
The tomatoes are like the same way.
Yeah, it's kind of like dairy. You drink dairy, if you still drink dairy, you better be organic. At this point, pretty bad. Tomatoes, also one of those. Lettuce, one of the good things about growing local lettuce. I think a lot of things that we're doing are good, but on that subject, nothing to get discouraged about, because life is all about watching trends, and you guys are at the start of your new venture, and the trend is up. trend is definitely not going backwards. More and more people are becoming aware of it, and more people are talking to us about and asking us as a restaurant, how do you source? Where does your food come from? And they want to know, and I think that's great. I think a lot of people ask us because our kitchens are wide open. So if you go to one of our restaurants, it's all glassed in, so you're able to see the prep process. You're able to see us bring produce up, see us wash it, see us skin carrots, see us chop carrots, on and on and on. And so I think it leads people to ask us probably more than when they go out to eat on a regular basis. But I think people wanting to go out to eat and get a little bit of like culinary surprise or magic, and they're like, how did that happen? What's in here? I don't even know. That kind of age of food I think is gone. And I think people truly want to know what it is that they're putting in their body. And sooner or later, hopefully sooner, people are going to ask a lot more about, okay, that's what I just put in my body, but where did it come from? And who grew it? And how is it grown?
I would like to make a comment. Something that you have in your hands in your business in the food industry is you have the cool factor. And you guys can make local food. So it's kind of like you're encouraging to supply to you guys, because not only is the trend going that way, you have the opportunity to put it on the fast track.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think that's definitely a good point. I think that's why farmers should work with restaurants, because if you work with restaurants, that is your advertising channel, and it's free. It's free advertising for you. Restaurants will want to promote it because they can demand a higher product cost, and you, at the end of the day, benefit. Everybody benefits. So restaurants, whereas most restaurants, we personally don't advertise, but that's just because we started really broke, like I was telling you, and we just never ended up advertising. But a lot of people do, and they ask us a lot about marketing and how we market ourselves. And as I try and tell people, when you advertise, you're renting somebody's channel to a group. And you just touched on a great point. If you, as a farmer, want to promote your produce, your product, the best way to do that is to get it through a channel that's already existing. And people who are there, other local people who are proud of what you do and how that affects their business. And we would like I said, promote any partnership. Here, like to talk they have my number, and if you guys know anybody, we're definitely open, as is our wellness. So hit us up. It'd be awesome.
Do you guys ever use like purple color stuff, like purple carrots?
Yeah, so we have rainbow carrots right now. I think that's awesome. We do get some multicolored things, some heirloom varieties, definitely. We can incorporate them, I think that's great. But it's typically like that's a bioelastic stuff. So this week we have.
I just had a quick question. First of all, how long have you been
So we opened in 2010.
My daughter just ate there. She was like, wow, it's bad.
That's awesome.
But, I'm asking.
Yeah, and it's probably because we don't advertise. So it's all word of mouth, which I think is fun. I mean, if we're able to do it on word of mouth, you guys definitely. We're open 11 a.m. to 9 p.m. 7 days a week in Sylvania, Perrysburg, and we're closed on Sundays. Thank you guys so much. Grill has me at the end. Yep.